What's up, YouTube? My name is Caden and you're watching Gasset Garage. Today we are putting a go-kart seat on a mini bike along with this Briggs & Stratton 5 horsepower engine. Alright guys, today we are starting a new project. I have this old mini bike here that I just picked up on Facebook Marketplace for 125 bucks, and it comes just about ready to ride. It's got a seat, grips, it's got a throttle, it has a little 79cc engine on it that I don't even know if it runs. And it looks like everything on this bike, other than maybe the engine and the seat, are original, which is pretty cool. And I'm going to want to try and keep as much of that as I can, although with what I'm going to be doing to it, I don't know how much of the rear part of the frame here I'm going to be able to keep, because I'm putting this very large go-kart seat on the back of this bike, just like that. This thing is going to look super dumb and goofy, but that's kind of what I'm going for here, just to get a lot of heads turned going, what the heck is that? So I had this idea a while back to build a mini bike like this with a Briggs & Stratton 5 horse on it and a big go-kart seat. And instead of hand controls like a twist grip and a handbrake, instead of those, I'm going to be doing a gas pedal and a brake pedal, just like a go-kart. So the idea I'm going for here is what you would get if a go-kart and a mini bike had a child. So we've got the go-kart seat, we've got the foot controls, and I'm thinking about maybe trying to put a steering wheel on this mini bike, which is kind of going to be a challenge because I'm going to have to remove these handlebars, which I really don't want to do because they are original. But I think it'll be kind of an interesting experiment to try out how a steering wheel will work on a small motorcycle like this. If it doesn't work out, I actually have this old set of handlebars hanging up there off of a motorcycle that I'll throw on it, and it'll have more of like a chopper look, which I think will be pretty neat. Now, I don't know if that engine runs, like I said earlier, so I'm gonna try and get it running in this video, but if I can't, I'll just get rid of it and go ahead and throw this engine on, because I know that engine does run. Now this bike is just about as simple and bare bones as you can get for a mini bike. For the foot pegs, it just has a piece of tubing welded on there. There's no brakes. It's just a very, very basic frame. It has, I think, the original wheels and tires on it. And I'm guessing this thing was probably from like the 70s. Just judging by the design of the frame and the wheels and tires that it has on it. It's actually got some pretty cool wheels on this thing. This is steel. That's not plastic. And the front tire actually looks to be in pretty good shape, so I'll probably keep it on there. Although the rear tire is not doing too well back here. It looks like the bead is completely destroyed in there, so this thing probably won't even hold air if I try and put air in it. And also the rim is pretty badly rusted. And then the sprocket over here is incorrectly spaced to line up with the engine sprocket. So I'm probably just going to replace the whole rear end back here with new axle, new sprocket, and a new wheel and tire. And I'll probably get all that from Go Power Sports. And this thing actually came with another wheel and tire along with the chain, so that's an added bonus. And this tire looks to be in pretty good condition, and it's nice and knobby to be a good off-road back tire. And although that hole is keyed, I can still put an axle through that pretty easily. So I may end up just using this wheel, but if it doesn't work, I'll just buy one from Go Power Sports, because this one does not have a hub on either side for a sprocket or a brake disc, so I may have to get a new wheel, but I could probably still use the tire. Now, as for mounting the seat, what I'm going to have to do is obviously remove this seat, which is just held on by 2 bolts, so that's going to be pretty easy. And then my plan is kind of to cut out this part of the frame, like chop it right there, and chop it maybe right here and cut up this piece of angle iron that I have to make kind of like a large box shape to mount the bottom of this seat on. Because if you look at the bottom of this thing, it has a 6-bolt mounting pattern in it, and each one of these are threaded. So I can build a box out of angle iron around that and weld that box to the main frame right here. So the seat will be nice and solid. So I'm gonna quit talking and I'm gonna try and get this little 79cc engine here to run. But I won't spend too much time on it because I'm pretty excited to start this build. So let's jump right into this. All right, so I don't really know anything about this engine other than it's just sitting here on the bike and there's a throttle cable attached to it. And it looks like this engine is 79 cc's, as it says right there, and it is made by Wenling Zhengjiang. That is a Chinese name if ever I heard one. So definitely a Chinese engine. I'm going to take the seat off so I can have better access to the gas cap. I'm going to throw some fuel in this thing, maybe mess with the choke and throttle a little bit, and attempt to start this thing. And it does not look like there's a kill switch on this thing, so I can probably just go ahead and start it right up, hopefully. And there it is. This thing's heavy. Wow. It's probably full of water. That is a homemade seat right there. All right, nice. We have a seat plate, but I'm probably gonna end up getting rid of this because I want to lower this down to put the big seat on and build the angle iron box I was talking about. So let me throw some gas in this thing and try and start it up. Kind of smells a little bit. Tells me there was some old gas in there, but hopefully I put enough in to be able to kind of dilute the old stuff. Fuel's on. It even idles too. Cool. Now let me open the door so I don't die of exhaust fumes. All right, so I was taking this rear tire off to move this spacer right here from this side to align the sprocket a little bit better. And I originally thought that this tire was a tubeless tire, meaning you had to seat the bead and everything to get it to hold air. But I realized, because of the way the valve stem is in that hole there, that this thing actually has an inner tube in it. So I decided to put a little bit of air in it, and it's actually holding air with no leaks. And the bearings are still pretty good in it, although if you look at this, you can see it has a pretty bad bulge in the tire right there. So I can probably use this tire for mock-up purposes and maybe for a light test drive, but for long term I'm probably gonna have to get a new tire and rim, just because you can't really roll with that big giant bulge right there for very long before you just destroy this tire. So I'll just leave it on here for now, and I'll worry about getting a new tire later, because right now This one actually does hold air pretty well. I don't hear any hissing or anything. But right now I want to try and get the engine right there off of that wooden block that it's bolted to, and just try and mock it up in the frame here just to kind of see how it looks and see how my chain alignment is going to be. Because I was looking at this thing and I kind of put the big go-kart seat on it just to kind of see where it's going to sit. And in order for this thing not to be a wheelie machine, I may have to take the mount points for this rear wheel and move them back like 6 inches. And to do that, I'll probably cut off these plates, and I have some U-bends of tubing that I can weld onto the back of here and extend that mount point by about 6 inches to make the wheelbase of this thing longer. But I'll do that later. So for right now, let's get this engine mocked up. I have to say, with this engine in here, this thing is seriously starting to look like a real vintage mini bike. But I'm gonna change the look of this thing quite a bit with the go-kart seat and everything. So for all you vintage mini bike fans out there, I apologize in advance. It looks like I'm gonna have a little bit of clearance issues here, especially with the spark plug wire there. But I'm probably gonna just kind of get rid of this plate anyway to put on the mount for the go-kart seat over there. And then the gas tank clearing the fender is probably not going to be an issue because I am moving the wheel back, and I can move the fender back as well. And then as for chain clearance and alignment, it's looking like it's going to align pretty well with the shaft on the engine. I am going to have to dangle the engine off the side a little bit, but it shouldn't be too bad as long as it's move back as far as possible. So it also looks like my gas fill cap is easy to get to, and then exhaust is blowing out the side there, and kill switch is pretty accessible. The only thing I'm really gonna have to do in terms of clearance is just move this fender back and either cut a notch out of this or just remove this plate entirely, which honestly, I'll probably just remove the plate because I'm gonna have to make a lot of room for that big giant seat that I'm putting on here. This thing's starting to come together though, looking good. So I just got a whole lot done on this thing. I chopped off this piece of the frame to allow room for the seat box that I'm going to make to mount the seat right there. Because I kind of put the seat on there and measured out where exactly I need it for a good seating position. And I determined that that was a good place to cut the frame so I can build the little box I talked about earlier out of some angle iron to mount the seat. Now, I also extended the rear wheel by about 9 or 10 inches because I had these U-bends right here, which were actually the original A-arms off of the Yerf dog over here. The other two are sitting over there. So I basically just cut them up and I welded some washers onto the ends where the holes were, because the holes that originally held these ball joints right here were too big for the bolt. So I found some washers that were the right size and I welded them on so I could put that bolt through. But I am going to have to get a longer bolt because that thing's about 1 inch too short for these, because you can see that these two new mount points are further apart than the original ones right there and there. But as of right now, this thing is looking pretty good. I've just got to clean these welds up, because just don't look too close at them because they are kind of ugly. My welder was kind of acting up a little bit, probably because the metal was dirty. So I didn't get a very clean weld on them. And I was looking more at this rear tire, and I noticed that overnight it went flat again. So I'm really just going to use this for mock-up. It's too wobbly to use and it doesn't really hold air for very long. So I'll just use it for mock-up purposes. But next thing I've got to do is build the box for the seat. And then that's probably all we're going to have time for today's video. So let's go ahead and do that. I got the angle iron box made here. I had to cut these sides off of it because this right here is at an angle. So it'll fit just perfectly like this. You can see why I had to trim it off, because it's just a pretty big angle and the sides of the angle iron wouldn't allow me to put it on there like that. So I had to cut those. But I'll just clean up the welds a little bit and drill some holes in this thing. So that's probably gonna have to be it for this video, guys, because I'm kind of out of time. So in part 2 of this build, I'm gonna finish drilling the holes in the box there, and then I'll clean up all the welds on the box and these right here, and then I will start really putting this thing together, and hopefully we can get the engine mounted and get the seat fully mounted and welded into the frame. And then I can maybe start trying to do the steering wheel, or maybe mounting the engine, or maybe something else. But the rest of that's going to have to be for part 2 of this video. So thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment, and I will see you in part 2.